They told us we were liberators. They said we'd bring freedom to a place most of us couldn't even pronounce. But I'm here 50 years later, and I still hear their voices when the rain hits the tin roof. If you think you know what happened in Vietnam, you don't. Nobody ever told you the truth. I will. The first thing that hit me wasn't the heat, or the smell, or the insects. It was the sound. A helicopter blade tearing through the air like God himself was sawing open the sky. We dropped into Quang Tri Province in the middle of the wet season, mud deep enough to swallow a man whole. I was 19, a Marine from Indiana who still thought war was just something in movies. The jungle looked alive. Everything moved, everything breathed. Steam rose from the ground like ghosts. We'd been briefed that the locals might be friendly, might be enemy, might be both. Nobody really knew. Trust no one, our sergeant said. Smile, but keep your finger near the trigger. I smiled a lot that first week, until I stopped. Our first patrol was quiet. Too quiet. The kind that squeezes your lungs until even the birds sound suspicious. We walked single file through rice paddies and elephant grass taller than me. The air was thick, like breathing soup. Somewhere in the distance, artillery echoed, soft, constant thunder reminding us the world was still ending somewhere else. By the third day, the novelty had worn off. My boots never dried, my socks were breeding something unholy, and every night the jungle screamed at us. You couldn't see 5 feet ahead, but you always felt eyes watching. That's what got into your head, the idea that the trees were alive and hated you. Then came the village. Command said it was a supply line, locals feeding the enemy. We were told to search and secure. We moved in at dawn, rifles up, hearts pounding. I remember a little girl running with a basket of mangoes, bare feet slapping the dirt. She stopped when she saw us, those green uniforms, helmets, rifles, and she froze. Her mother came out yelling something we didn't understand, waving her hands. Our translator muttered, "She says they're just farmers." The sergeant didn't even look up. "Tell her to back away," he said. You could feel the tension, like a storm about to break. Then a shot rang out, from where no one knows. One of ours dropped, hit in the shoulder, and that was it. Training kicked in. We fired. Everyone fired. The air turned to thunder and smoke. When it stopped, the only sound left was the crying. Not ours, theirs. A boy maybe 10 years old was holding his father's arm, trying to wake him up. The smell of gunpowder mixed with burned rice and something metallic. That smell never leaves you. Our medic was shaking, muttering prayers. The sergeant said we did what we had to. I remember looking at him and thinking, did we? That night, I couldn't eat. The faces kept coming back, eyes wide and empty. I started writing letters to my mom but never mailed them. What was I gonna say? Hey Ma, the weather's hot and I might have just killed a farmer? After that day, everything changed. We stopped talking about enemy and friend. Everyone was just a shape in the mist that might kill you. Trust died faster than our sense of right and wrong. 2 weeks later, we got ambushed near the same river. Charlie knew the land like it was his own bloodstream. We walked right into it. Booby traps, AK fire from the trees, explosions so close you could taste dirt in your teeth. I watched my best friend Mike disappear in a flash, just gone. No body, no sound, nothing. We fought for hours, crawling through mud, screaming for medevac that never came. When it was over, I was the only one from my squad still standing. They called it a victory. I called it a miracle with a body count. After that, I stopped sleeping. Every sound became a threat. Every shadow had a face. And somewhere deep down, a voice started whispering, maybe we're not the good guys. When I got home a year later, people shook my hand and said, "Welcome back, hero." They didn't know that every time I closed my eyes, I saw that little girl with the mangoes. I saw Mike's empty helmet. I saw the smoke rising from a place we said we were helping, and I smiled because that's what heroes do. It was the smell that always came first. Wet earth, sweat, smoke, and something else, something I still can't name. The jungle had a way of swallowing everything, sounds, light, even time. Days blurred into nights, and nights into hallucinations. I'd lie awake, staring at the black canopy above me, wondering if the stars even existed anymore, or if they'd burned out somewhere between here and home. A few months after the river ambush, I got transferred to a smaller unit, 6 of us, all worn down, all ghosts pretending to be alive. Our mission was reconnaissance, hearts and minds, they called it. We were supposed to build trust with the locals, bring supplies, show that we weren't monsters. But how do you convince people you're not a monster when you don't even believe it yourself? We hiked for days through villages where nobody met our eyes. Kids would vanish the second they saw us. The old men would sit in silence, chewing betel nuts, watching us with the kind of stare that said, "You don't belong here." They were right. We didn't. One afternoon, we found a small hamlet tucked behind the tree line, 5 huts, maybe 20 people. They looked half-starved. The lieutenant told us to hand out food, take pictures, make it look good for the report. I gave a bag of rice to a boy who couldn't have been older than 12. He smiled. Just a simple smile. For a second, I thought, maybe this is what they meant by hearts and minds. That night, the hamlet burned. We'd set up camp a few hundred yards away. I woke to the crack of gunfire and the orange glow painting the treetops. The flames climbed fast, devouring everything. Screams carried through the dark. By the time we reached the village, it was too late. The huts were collapsing, and the air was full of ash and noise. I grabbed the lieutenant by the collar and shouted, "Who did this?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. I saw the look on his face. Cold, efficient, empty. Later, someone whispered that intel said the villagers were feeding the enemy again. The lieutenant decided not to take chances. But I'd just seen that boy, that smile. The next morning, there was nothing left but smoke and bones. We buried what we could. The lieutenant ordered us to move on, said we couldn't risk lingering. But I couldn't walk away. Something broke in me that day, something I've never fixed. A week later, I found a small wooden charm in the dirt, half burned. It had a carving of a bird, maybe a crane or a stork. I kept it, still have it. Sometimes I think it's the only thing that survived with a soul. You want to know the truth? The truth is, we weren't fighting for freedom. We were fighting not to die, fighting because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant remembering. After the fire, I started questioning orders. That made me dangerous. Command transferred me again, said I needed a change of scenery. They sent me north, near the DMZ, where the ground itself tried to kill you. Landmines, snipers, malaria, you name it. That's where I met Captain Harris. The man was carved from stone, the kind of officer who believed discipline could fix anything. He saw my hesitation like blood in the water. "You got doubts, Marine?" he asked me once during a patrol. I told him, "No, sir." He smiled, but his eyes said he knew I was lying. We were ordered to clear a suspected enemy bunker system along the hillside. Harris wanted results, proof we were making progress. We moved in with flamethrowers and grenades. The tunnels were tight, hot, full of echoes. I can still hear the metal scraping against rock, the hiss of fire, the screams trapped in the dark. Afterward, Harris radioed command. Mission accomplished, area secured. But there was something he didn't see. In one of those tunnels, I found a woman and 2 children hiding behind sandbags. They weren't soldiers, they had no weapons, just fear. I told them to stay quiet, that I'd help them get out once we cleared the area. I left them there, promising I'd come back, but I never did. When we detonated the charges, that section of the tunnel collapsed. I didn't say a word. Not that day, not that week, not for 50 years. Some nights when the wind hits just right, I still hear the muffled cries from under the earth. I wonder if they ever forgave me for walking away. When the war ended, I went home and tried to become someone else, a husband, a father, a man who mowed the lawn and paid his taxes. But deep down, I was still in that tunnel, holding my breath, waiting for the fire. I never told my wife, never told my kids. They grew up thinking their old man was a hero. Maybe that's for the best. But sometimes, late at night, I sit on the porch with a drink and I talk to the dark. I tell it about the woman, the boy with the mangoes, the hamlet in flames. I tell it that I remember. And in the silence after, I almost hear the jungle breathe again. The thing about war is, it doesn't end. It just changes uniforms. The battlefield moves inside you, and every day you fight the same ghosts with different names. I kept that wooden charm all these years. I look at it and wonder if it's cursed, or if it's what's been keeping me alive. Maybe both. They say confession is good for the soul, but some stories aren't meant for forgiveness. Some stories just need to be heard. You ever come home from a war that never ended? They told us we were lucky, the ones who made it back. But some days I wonder if the unlucky ones were the ones who got to stay behind. I landed in San Francisco in the summer of '69. The air smelled like gasoline and protest signs. Kids my age, clean, loud, alive, were shouting at us as we walked off the plane. Baby killers, they said. I didn't blame them. They didn't know. How could they? The government gave me a medal and a handshake. My mother gave me a hug that lasted too long. She kept saying, "You're home, Jimmy, you're home." But I wasn't. My body was, sure, but the rest of me was still in the jungle, knee-deep in mud, hearing choppers that weren't there. The nights were the worst. The sound of the ceiling fan would turn into rotor blades, the shadows into tree lines. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, heart racing, fingers searching for a rifle that wasn't there. My dad said, "You just need time." My doctor said, "You just need pills." But time doesn't heal when the wound keeps bleeding inside. I tried working construction. I liked the noise. It kept me from thinking. The first week, a nail gun misfired, and I hit the dirt like I was under attack. The guys laughed. I laughed too, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I met a girl, Linda. She was sunshine, the kind of woman who could make silence feel safe. We got married in '72. I told her I'd seen some bad things, but I never told her what. She deserved better than that. She gave me 2 kids and a reason to breathe again. For a while, I thought maybe I'd made it out. But the past doesn't die quietly. It waits. Sometimes I'd catch a smell, burned wood, wet grass, and suddenly I was back there. I'd see the woman in the tunnel, the boy with the mangoes. I'd hear the whispering of the jungle like it was calling my name. I started drinking, not to forget, but to remember without feeling. Linda tried to help, but how do you help a man who won't even admit what's killing him? One night she found me sitting on the porch with that wooden charm in my hand, the one from the burned village. She asked what it was. I told her it was a reminder. She said, "Of what?" I didn't answer. Years passed. The kids grew up, the world moved on, but the war stayed. Every news story, every siren, every clap of thunder, it all brought me back. Then one night, I heard it again, the choppers, clear as day. I went outside, heart pounding, looking for the lights in the sky. But there was nothing, just rain hitting the roof, the same rhythm that used to echo off tin huts in the jungle. I stood there for an hour, soaked, waiting for the sound to fade. It didn't. That's when I realized something. I wasn't hearing the war. The war was hearing me. You don't survive something like that, you carry it. Every face, every sound, every silence. And it waits until you're old and tired and sitting in the dark. Then it comes back and asks, "Do you remember me?" Yes, I remember all of them. The woman in the tunnel, the boy, Mike, even Captain Harris, especially Harris, because he's the reason I'm talking to you now. It was 20 years after I came home when I saw his face again on TV. He was a congressman now, talking about honor, duty, sacrifice. I stared at the screen and thought, you don't get to say those words. He was the one who ordered the charges in that tunnel. He was the one who told me to walk away. And I did. I obeyed. I followed orders. That's the part that eats at you. The part where you realize the evil wasn't just in the jungle. It was in you, too. For years, I told myself I didn't have a choice. That's what soldiers do, right? Follow orders. But one night, after a few too many drinks, I wrote him a letter. I told him what I remembered, what I saw, what I heard under that dirt. I never mailed it, but I kept it, folded in the same envelope as that wooden charm. Now I take them out sometimes, late at night. I read the letter. I touch the charm. I tell myself maybe someday I'll burn them both, let the ghosts rest. But I never do. Because if I burn them, it's like saying it didn't happen, and I can't do that. There's a weight that comes with surviving something you shouldn't have. It's not guilt exactly. It's more like debt.
You spend the rest of your life trying to pay it back, but you never really can. People ask what war taught me. I tell them, it teaches you what kind of man you are when nobody's watching. The problem is, sometimes you don't like the answer. These days, I just sit here, on this porch, listening to the rain. I'm old now. My hands shake too much to write. My knees hurt when it storms. But in my head, I'm still that 19-year-old kid, standing in a burning village, asking myself the same question I never answered. Was I a hero or a coward? You ever keep a secret so long it starts to rot inside you? That's what it feels like. Not pain, not guilt, just rot. Slow, quiet, patient. It's been 55 years since that day in the jungle, but some nights it's like I never left. I still wake up here in the tunnel collapse, feeling the ground shake under me. I can smell the smoke, taste the dirt, hear the screams. For decades, I told myself I'd done what I had to do, that if I hadn't followed orders, more of us would have died. But that's a lie soldiers tell themselves when the uniform starts to feel too heavy. The truth is, I could have stopped it. I could have gone back for him, and I didn't. That's the part I never told anyone. Not my wife, not my kids, not the VA shrink who thought a few pills would erase a lifetime. But if I'm gonna leave something behind, it might as well be the truth. A few years ago, I went to D.C. My daughter wanted to see the Vietnam Memorial. I told her I wasn't sure I could handle it, but she said, "Dad, you have to face it sometime."
So we went. When you walk down that black wall, it's like the air changes. You see your reflection between all the names, thousands of them, stretching into the earth. And somewhere in there you realize it's not just the dead carved into that stone, it's the living too. Every one of us who made it back but never really came home. My daughter held my arm as I walked. She thought my hands were shaking because I was sad, but it wasn't sadness, it was recognition. Because there, near the middle, was a name I never expected to see. Harris. Captain William T. Harris. I just stood there, staring. The man who'd given that order. The man I blamed for everything. Dead. His name shining back at me like it was laughing. My daughter whispered, "Did you know him?" And I said, "Yeah, I knew him." What I didn't tell her was that I was the one who put his name there. It wasn't in Vietnam. It was years later. I ran into him in D.C. after he'd become a politician. He recognized me instantly, smiled that same cold smile, told me I should be proud of what we did, said history would thank us. And something inside me snapped. I followed him that night, not to hurt him, at least that's what I told myself. I just wanted him to see me, to see what he'd made. But when he turned down that alley, when he turned and saw me there, all I saw in his eyes was fear. Not of me, but of the truth. We argued. He said the same words, "Orders are orders." I told him about the woman, the kids, the tunnel. You know what he said? He said, "You should have sealed it sooner." He turned to walk away. And I
I don't even remember making the choice. Just the sound, the struggle, the silence after. The report said it was a heart attack. Nobody asked questions. Nobody ever does when it comes to men like him. But I know what happened. I know what I did. That's my secret. That's the truth I've buried under medals and memories. And maybe that's why I'm still here, old and gray, talking to a camera, trying to empty a soul that's been full too long. Do I regret it? Every day. Would I do it again? I don't know. That's the worst part. I really don't know. People think war ends when the guns go quiet. They think peace is the opposite of violence. It's not. Peace is just the moment you realize the war inside you will never stop. Sometimes I sit out here at sunset, holding that wooden charm, and I wonder what that boy with the mangoes would think of me now. Would he see a monster or a man trying to make things right? Maybe both. Maybe that's what all of us were, monsters trying to be men again. The rain's starting up now. Funny how it always sounds the same, no matter where you are. Vietnam, Indiana, doesn't matter. The rain carries voices. If you listen close enough, you can almost hear them. I hear Mike laughing. I hear the woman in the tunnel whispering. I hear Captain Harris saying those same words that ruined me. Orders are orders. But not tonight. Tonight I talk back. I say, no, they're not. If you've listened this far, you probably think I'm crazy. Maybe I am. But if you remember anything from what I've said, remember this. War doesn't end when you leave the battlefield. It follows you home, sits beside you at the dinner table, tucks you in at night. And if you don't face it, one day it will face you. I used to think I was fighting to survive. Now I know I was surviving to confess. So here it is, my truth, my curse, my peace. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough.